Hello everyone and welcome back to Ladybooks. If you are new here, my name is Rim, and on this YouTube channel I do book reviews, K-drama reviews, amongst other stuff. I am basically very inconsistent. I don't post a lot. I think that this video that you are seeing here is one you are watching after a year. I haven't posted for nearly a year now, and yeah, I try to be consistent, and maybe I will in the future, just praying for that. So I just decided that I would come back to YouTube and with a new video, and this time I decided that I would do, instead of doing like a classic book review, I'm gonna do a reading wrap-up, and especially an autumn special reading wrap-up. Since autumn is practically ending to me, I know that autumn actually ends on the 21st of December, but to me, as soon as November is over, it's like winter vibes. Autumn is practically over, and I love autumn and I love winter too, so I'm excited for winter. And I decided that I would do with you a reading wrap-up of everything I've read this November. I'm gonna try not to speak too much about every single book I've read, otherwise you would just spend like the whole day watching this video and it wouldn't be fun at all. So I'm just gonna give you a little bit of details, a little bit of my thoughts, of my feelings, maybe a little bit of what is happening in the book, just quickly about everything I've read this autumn. And I've had a pretty good season of reading. Like, autumn has been really good to me in terms of books, in terms of reading. I really loved this autumn and I really loved everything I've read in it. I've read good books, I've read really great books, I've had some really great coup de cœur, some really great 5 stars books. There are books in French and books in English, although this video is fully like in English, and there is even a book in Arabic. I'm pretty proud of myself, of the languages I've read. And without further blah blah, because I think that if you know me from before, you know that I talk a lot. Let's jump to the video and let's jump to the first book that I've read. My first reading this autumn was a really great one, and one I rated 5 stars. I've already reviewed it on Instagram. It's A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I know it's a trilogy. I've only read the first one. I listened to it as an audiobook, and I think it was the very first audiobook I listened to in English, and it was really great. I mean, I was expecting to actually like this story, but I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. The genre of the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is basically young adult cross thriller, and I was not thinking that I would love this genre this much. It's just the right amount of creepy, right amount of mystery, right amount of romance and young adult stuff that it makes it just so perfect. I think that the book had 3 plot twists by the end, and I didn't see all the plot twists coming. Like, I saw none of them coming, and this was really great. It was a really great book in terms of writing, in terms of the story, in terms of plot twists and surprises, in terms of characters, and in terms of character development, and in terms of it was not boring at all. There was not a single minute in it that was boring. There was always something happening, always stuff happening, and it's basically the story of this girl called Pippa that decides to investigate the very famous case of the disappearance of a very popular girl in her hometown, and everyone thinks that it's a boy named Sal Singh that killed his girlfriend that disappeared, and then killed himself. But Pippa doesn't believe that, and she decides to investigate it as part of her final project for high school. I think it was a project for, yes, it was her final year project for high school. We just follow her in her adventures with that, along with Ravi Singh, who is the brother of the guy who is accused of the murder of the girl who disappeared. Okay, so I hope I'm clear. I hope you're not losing me somewhere, but it's a really great book, and the main male character is such a green flag. He's so amazing. He's so well written, as well as the female lead too. She's so amazing too. And you actually feel the investigation going. You actually feel yourself thinking with her. Who did that? Why did they do that? The surprises she stumbles on. Okay, so everything is really greatly done and really greatly written. The book was adapted lately to a TV show holding the same name, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I watched it, didn't like it that much. They changed so many things from the books. I just practically don't understand why they changed some stuff. The TV show was really, I'm sorry, I think that I rated that a 2 out of 5 just because I like the actors and the actresses, and it's really such a shame because they had the greatest casting ever that did such a great job portraying the characters, but then they changed everything in the story and even in the character development. For example, Ravi, that was such a green flag in the books, turned out he was not a jerk in the TV show, but he did some stuff that real Ravi, books Ravi would never do. And the investigation in the TV show all felt so lame and so expectable, even though, yeah, I knew the story, I knew the ending, but it was just there. Like they were basically screaming who did that, what we are looking for since episode 1. So I don't know. That was just my opinion. They are going to do a season 2 for that, which is gonna be book 2 that I still haven't read. And Holly Jackson, the writeress, is writing the season 2. So I hope that season 2 is gonna be better in terms of adaptation from book to TV show. And yeah, that's it. That was for the first book I've read. A really great reading, a 5 stars rating. I have also read the 3 first books of the Anne of Green Gables series by Lucy Maud Montgomery. I've read them in French, Anne, La Maison au Pignon Vert, and then Anne d'Avonlea, and then Anne de Redmond, which translates to Anne of Green Gables, then Anne of Avonlea, and then Anne of Redmond. So I read the 3 first books of the series. The first one, Anne of Green Gables, was a rereading. I read that in 2020, I think, for the first time, and I decided to reread that because I wanted to read like the whole series and I wanted to read it again. I think that if you know me, you know how much I love Lucy Maud Montgomery. I mean, my username on Instagram is in Aimée of the New Moon, basically coming off one of her most famous characters, Emily of the New Moon. So I love Lucy Maud Montgomery so much, and it was about time I finally read the Anne series. Anne, for me, is not just a book. The Anne series are not just books. They are practically a peek into life. It's just reading life, not reading a story. And it's so good that I feel like any review of it is me diminishing from it. How can you review? Like, I found someone on Goodreads that wrote this sentence and it resonated so much with me. How can you review a book that transcends every single book? I mean, in terms of writing, it's just exquisite. It's basically poetry. It's just like reading some moonlight, enlightening the world. It's the writing is one of the most beautiful things you will ever have to witness. And then the story itself, the characters, how Anne is so attaching, how I identify a lot with Anne, and I know that a lot of us out there find themselves in her, the way she behaves, in what she says, in the way she thinks, the friendships. I mean, the way Lucy Maud Montgomery writes friendship is something that will make you cry. And then the romance. The romance is basically Lucy Maud Montgomery wrote her main male character, Gilbert Blythe, and he was every single girl's and woman's standard for the rest of eternity. He is the greenest flag to ever exist, ever. He is the standard. He is the thing to aim for. Never settle for someone less than a Gilbert Blythe. Okay, so Okay, so practically, what is the story of Anne of Green Gables? How it starts? It's about this girl named Anne Shirley. She is an orphan. She is 11 years old, and she's been adopted by a brother and a sister. They're in their 60s, I think. Marilla and Matthew Cuthbert. I'm reading this in French, so I'm not going to be able to pronounce it in English. And they adopted her. They actually wanted to adopt a son to help them with some farm work, but there was a mistake, and the orphanage sent a girl, and it was Anne. And Anne is this little girl who is just full of imagination and big words, and she's just so talkative, and she likes to dream, and she likes to name places and to name trees, and she likes to speak to the moon and to the stars and to the flowers, and she has a story for everything, and she has imaginary friends, and she worships the concept of friendship, and she worships the concepts of romance, and she longs to belong somewhere, and she longs to belong to this new family she is finding, and it's such a found family trope, and all in the beautiful set in the beautiful Avonlea, which is a fictive place on the island of Prince Edward in Canada in the late, I think, 1890s, beginning of the 20th century. And it's such a beautiful book. I cannot recommend it enough. I've read the first 3 of the series. I think that there are 4 or 5 more books. I'm not quite sure. All I'm sure of is that I'm gonna finish reading them all in French, and I'm gonna reread them in English, and I'm gonna be rereading them for the rest of my life, because these are such good books. And throughout the 3 books, like in book 1, she is 11, and then she's growing up. We follow her from 11 to 16 years old, and then the second book we are gonna follow her from 16 to 20 years old, I think, and then from 20 to 22 years old, and we're gonna follow her while she goes to university, and while she makes new friends, and she meets new people, and while she is grieving, and while she loses people, and while she's dreaming, and while some dreams become concrete, and while she loses others. It's just basically a story about life, and about life, how it should be. It's not ideal. It's not something that is ultimately happy. Well, it is, but not ultimately. There are sadnesses, grievances, losses, and it's basically how life should be simpler, how we should just come back to living a more simple life, and to find joy in the littlest of things, in the smallest little things of life, like in a bee flying, in a bird that comes to our window in the morning, in the clouds in the sky, in our friends, in our family. And it's a story about gratefulness, and it's such a good book. And I'm gonna stop right here because I still have a lot of books and I've been talking about this one forever. So just know that when I finish reading the full series, I'm gonna do a full video talking just about it. I read the first book in the Dune series, Dune by Frank Herbert. I've listened to that as an audiobook in French, and honestly, I think that I couldn't have possibly read that book like in a physical copy or as an ebook. Like, the best way that I've read this book is as an audiobook, because it is like, maybe for the 70%, first 70% of the book, it was nothing but setup and world building. Nothing practically happened. It was starting from the 70% that it started happening. I've actually rated that. I was like between rating it 4 or 5 stars, but I gave it a 5 stars because it was a good, great book, and the final plot twist left me in awe. I was like, oh my god, I'm so impatient to read the rest of the series. I am not able to tell you about the story of this in like less than 30 seconds, which it would be impossible to tell you what the story is about. It's basically, I think that it is classified as science fiction. I would say it's a science fiction dystopian kind of thing, and it doesn't really feel like science fiction since it's not like really spaceships in the sky or anything. It feels just our world in the very, 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 very far future, where Paul, our main character, and his parents move to a planet called Dune where there is no water, or perhaps really little water, and water is so precious that people, for example, do not cry and they recycle their own body waters and they move there. And it's basically, I think, it's a very political book in terms of there is treason, there is alliances, there is people who just stab you in the back, and you don't know who's the good guys, you don't know who's the bad guys, and it's a really complex story. I really don't know how to talk about it, and the writing feels like it's almost something sacred. It's almost like a sacred text. It's written in such a sacred tonality, like you're reading something very precious. I don't know if you see what I mean, but this is how I felt reading that. It felt like something very out of this world, and it's really a story that needs to be told in that way. So Dune Book 1 is a very long book that takes a long time to settle down, and I feel like that time was needed because there are so many things that needs to be explained. There are so many characters, so many alliances, so many people that know each other, and that you don't know who's the good people and who are the bad people. So you need to know, you need the world building for that, and it's a book that takes its time, and you need to take your time with it, and it's very beautifully written. I haven't watched the movies yet in order to see if the movies are loyal or not to the books, but apparently the movies are really great too. I'm really excited to watch them. It was a really great book, a really great reading. I'm so happy that I finally started this series. Definitely going to continue it. And I'm really excited to see where it's heading. I just hope, because it's been such a long time. I read this in September. I just really hope that I haven't forgotten some of the world building things, because there are so many characters and so many places and so many rules in this universe that it's just like so messy. So just be concentrated with it. It's not a chill read. It's not one you're gonna read while you're half falling asleep. You need to be fully concentrated with that. Our next book is the only book in Arabic that I've read, and it's Amarita by Amr Abdel Hamid. It's an Egyptian writer, and Amarita is the second book of the Land of Zikula series. Ard Zikula translates to Land of Zikula, and Amarita doesn't translate to practically anything because it doesn't mean anything. It's just the name of a place, so a fictive place, so it means nothing. So I've read Ard Zikula during summer, and then Amarita in September. I liked it. But not that much, because I have heard so many great things about it that I was expecting something wow. But it wasn't wow, but it was good. It was really good. Book 1 was like a 2 out of 5 for me, but book 3 was a 3 out of 5, because if you have seen my review of The Land of Zikola on Instagram, I said that the main character of book 1, Khalid, he pissed me off. I didn't like him at all. He was such a walking red flag, such a womanizer, such a... I really didn't like his character. Like, he made the worst decisions, he talked in the worst ways, but Amarita has had the same characters. It's basically the story continuing, but not the same main character. So we are more focused on characters that I liked, like Asil and like Khalid, and the other guys. So I like these characters. Basically Khalid, no, not Khalid, oh my god, I just realized I said like Asil and like Khalid. The main character is Khalid, Asil and Yamin, yes, Khalid's best friend. Focusing on these characters that I liked, Khalid made his few appearances that I hated, but these other characters were really interesting, and I was really interested in seeing their development, and the story in itself was really great. And the main romance in this one between Asil and the king of this new land called Amarita was such a cute thing to witness, and the king was really one of the greatest characters ever. And there is a third book in the series called Where Did the Element See, I think, which means the river of the forgotten worlds. I haven't read that yet, but I'm gonna be reading it, and I hope I like it as much as I liked book 2. So maybe more. This was like the very first experience. I don't read a lot in Arabic, so I'm really glad that I did. And it was such a, I think, a smooth a great reading to begin with, since I really like fantasy and this is a fantasy. So yeah, it was a great book to begin with when starting to read Arabic. If you read in Arabic and if you have good recommendations of book in Arabic, please recommend me some. I like fantasy, so recommend me some good, great fantasy books that don't have the that are written better than Articola and that have better characters, basically. Our third book is La Bibliothèque des Petits Miracles by Freya Sampson. This was a very cute book. When I started this, I thought that it was a book in French, like a French author, but no, it's translated to French. And this was a cute reading, great reading, emotional one. I think that I gave that a 4 out of 5. Yes, I gave that a 4 out of 5. It was really nice to read that. It was it's a story about this woman who works in a library in her small hometown and who cannot let go of the house she used to live in with her mom who passed away, I think 8 years ago, and she cannot let go of that job of librarian that she has and that her mom had before her. She just loved her mom so much, and she is like in a place of her life where she feels like stuck. She cannot move on, she cannot let go of some things, and at the same time she doesn't want to, but at the same time she wants to go, for example, explore new places on earth, go finish her studies. And it's the story about this little library where she works and that she loves so much, and that the community of this little village, this little town where she lives, loves also so much. But they are threatening to close down the library, and her and the other the library loyals, the people loyal to the library, they decide to practically save the library. And it was very emotional in terms of, I really like the connections between the characters. Like the secondary characters, I really like the connections between them and our main female lead. I forgot her name. This is why I'm calling her our main female lead. It was one of these books that were really great, but not unforgettable, you know? You remember that you enjoyed it, you remember you spent a great time with it, but you don't remember what the details, or perhaps you actually remember some details, but with time, you may forget the big storyline, and you just remember the little details that warmed your heart. Because in my opinion, it's the details that make the story, not the plot, not anything. It's the details and the characters and the details we put in characters and in the plot that make a good story. And this one literally made me feel really warm and really great about myself, and it's such une petite lecture douillette que je vous recommande à 1000%. It's really a great story. Oh, and it's also a book about books and about people who love books. And I love books that talk about books and about people who love books, and where we have so many literature references, and where just people are crazy about books. I just love these kind of stories. Coming next is the worst book I've read this autumn. This was like, you're not gonna hear about another book that I liked less than this one, and it's La Jeune Fille et la Nuit by Guillaume Musso. I started reading Guillaume Musso when I was at the end of middle school, at the beginning of high school, and I was such a huge, big reader when I was a child. And then during the end of middle school, I read a little bit less. I was still reading, but I was reading a little bit less. And then I read a book by Guillaume Musso. It was Et après. And I was like, oh my god, this is so good. And then I read practically, I think, all his books. I've read most of his books and stopped at Un appartement à Paris. I liked some more than the others. I didn't like his most popular ones are ones I didn't like that much. But yeah, I was like, it's been such a long time I haven't read any Guillaume Musso, so why not? Let's read this one. It's La Jeune Fille et la Nuit. I listened to it as an audiobook, and honestly, thanks God, I listened to it while doing while deep cleaning my room. And if it hadn't been an audiobook, I wouldn't have finished that. I've rated this 1 out of 5 just because I couldn't give it a 0 on Goodreads. It was so repetitive. it was so expectable, and the final plot twist felt like it was there just to throw a plot twist on us, just because he needed to surprise us. I didn't like it. It felt very rushed. I think that Guillaume Musso basically is this type of author where when you read his first book, then his second book, then his third book, and you're like, oh my god, wow, this is amazing. Like, after 5 books, you start realizing that the story changes, the characters change, but it's the same pattern. You start seeing the ending from the beginning, and you wish that it was not what's gonna happen, so you could be surprised, but no. It just happens, and sometimes the plot twist, even if you don't see it coming, it feels so forced. It feels like the author had in mind that I need to make a plot twist. Well, no, not all stories actually need a plot twist. You can just go with the wind and not make a forced plot twist on us. So I don't know if you see what I mean. I don't even have the strength to tell you what's the story of La Jeune Fille et la Nuit. It's so complicated, so many characters, and oh yes, one thing that annoyed me also are the characters. It feels like we brushed through the characters. We didn't deep dive into the characters and their problems and their connections and their relationships. It felt like we didn't get to know them that much. We didn't have time to meet them, to emphasize with them, to say all poor things. And the ending wasn't really satisfying. I mean, if you've read it, I think that they practically got away with... Okay, this is a spoiler, so if you're planning on reading it, just skip a few seconds, but I think that they practically got away with murder. They murdered an innocent man. A man we thought was guilty, but he was innocent, and they murdered him. So they got away with murder. Didn't they need to actually get some accountability on what they did? I don't know. It all felt really rushed, really didn't make sense all that much, and they kind of got away with murder, and they painted it as if they were all innocent. They weren't. The main characters weren't all that innocent, I think. So that's it for my review for La Jeune Fille et la Nuit. Not a great reading. Will I read Guillaume Musso ever again? Probably, maybe. I will pick up some of his other books, wishing that it's different from others. But not now. Maybe someday when I have nothing to read, but I may read some of his other books. Or maybe just read it so I can talk bad about it. Sometimes I just crave criticizing badly something. So yeah, I may read it. I would still recommend some of Guillaume Musso's books. I would still recommend, for example, Central Park. It was one of my favorites. I would still recommend Que ferais-je sans toi, 7 ans après, and Un appartement à Paris. I think that these were my favorite ones, and a little bit of Et après because it has an emotional value for me. It's the book that got me back into reading with fears. So yeah, I would still recommend some of his books. It's just that I'm really disappointed that we kind of find the same pattern in all and most of his books. Then I've read the first 5 books in the Shopaholic series by Sophie Kinsella, which is basically, I've read them in French, and it's Confessions d'une accro au shopping for book 1, and then Confessions of Shopaholic, and then L'accro du shopping à Manhattan, the Shopaholic at Manhattan, I think it is in English. L'accro du shopping dit oui, I think that it's the Shopaholic says yes. And then L'accro du shopping a une sœur, the Shopaholic has a sister. And finally, L'accro du shopping attend un bébé. I don't know what's the original title, but it's practically something like the Shopaholic is expecting a baby. This was one of the greatest things I've decided to do this year. It starts in this series. I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I think that there are still 3 or other 4 books in the series that I'm excited to read. I listened to these 5 audiobooks, and I listened to them like in a row. I was like playing them all day long, and I really enjoyed them so freaking much. It's about this girl called Rebecca Bloomwood, and she's 25 years old, and she works as a journalist in finance, and she loves shopping. She doesn't just love shopping. She's a shopaholic. She's addicted to shopping. She cannot go one day without buying stuff. and she's a professional shopper, and she loves, not as a job, but like she shops like a professional, not as a job, not as she gets paid for it, but she is like the biggest crazy shopping person on earth. And it was so fun being in her head, because basically all the book is happening is like one of the things that I loved about the writing also of Kinsella is how she takes us in the head of her main characters. It was like we were Rebecca Blomund and we were rushing through all her thoughts. And one of the things that made me laugh about her and that made her a little bit relatable is that how quick her mind just imagines scenarios. And like, for example, oh my god, imagine if I go to Hollywood and then I'm famous and then I meet this person and then I meet this person and we would be besties and we would go, and then suddenly she has a scenario in her mind in like a split second, a 20 years scenario in the future in like a split second, and it's totally imaginary. And I love the way she shops. I love it becomes sometimes frustrating in terms of she doesn't learn from her mistakes, and at for example book 1 and book 2 she didn't even recognize that she had a problem with shopping, because this is problematic. She was always à découvert. I don't know how we say à découvert in English. I'm gonna Google that and put it somewhere here. She always had debts, and she always was complaining about how everyone was not understanding how it was vital for her to buy the newest scarf by Denier Georges. I'm giving this exact example because this green scarf is really important in the books. And so we follow her friendships. Her friendship with Suze is just like one of the most beautiful things ever. We follow her romance with Luc Brandon, which is also, Luc Brandon is sometimes really infuriating, especially in the last book. Like, he really pissed me off. He didn't believe her, he didn't stand by her, so sometimes he really pissed me off, but it's okay. Like, it's not that big. He didn't piss me off a lot. You get angry with her and then you get happy with her, and that was, while listening to it, I was actually laughing out loud sometimes, and it was such a great book, such great books, 5 of them, and such great moments spent with them. It's just so light. I think that I've rated all of them from 3 to 5 stars. They were all really good, really heartwarming, really funny, really well written, really good narration, really good character developments for Rebecca Blomwood and for all of the other characters. And it was really sweet and wholesome to meet all the characters every single time in every book. And I'm really not excited about seeing the series ending and seeing me finishing it. Totally one of these series that I would totally see me rereading sometime in my life. I have read Agatha Raisin and the Walkers of Dembly, I don't know how to read that, but it's the 4th book in the Agatha Raisin murder mysteries by MC Biren. I've reviewed the 3 first books in a previous video at the beginning of the year. I'm gonna put the link in the description if you want to watch it. The Agatha Raisin murder mysteries is a series of books that I really enjoy. I've rated this one a 3 out of 5. I didn't really enjoy the case like I enjoyed the ones before. It was just a little bit cold. It was less cozy than the others, but because it's a cozy mystery, so it was less cozy than the other books, but nothing that annoyed me a lot. Plus the ending was really not expected, not in terms of who was the killer, because I kind of saw that coming. I was proud of myself, but in terms of what happened in the life of our dear Agatha Raisin, who is the main character, 40-something, nearly 50 woman who decides to take an early retirement and to move to the British countryside, and she just stumbles upon murder mysteries and she decides to investigate them, and she's investigating this one too. As I told you, I really enjoyed a little bit less the case because it was a little bit less cozy, a little bit more creepy, but not in the creepiest way. It's just that the way the characters involved in this murder mystery, the suspects, they were all a little bit creepy, creepier than usual. And the finale, that was really unexpected. I was not expecting a finale like that and such a development in our main characters' personal life, like that. So I'm really excited to pick up book 5 just to see what will happen. I need to go pick up this book. I've read Le Fait du Prince by Amélie Nothomb. The reason why I went and picked it up is because I wanted to read you why I decided to read this book. It's because I basically read the first page of this book. Si un invité meurt inopinément chez vous, ne prévenez surtout pas la police. Appelez un taxi et dites-lui de vous conduire à l'hôpital avec cet ami qui a un malaise. Le décès sera constaté en arrivant aux urgences et vous pourrez assurer, témoin à l'appui, que l'individu a trépassé en chemin. Moyennant quoi, on vous fichera la paix. And this is the reason why I bought this book and why I decided to read it. This and the quatrième de couverture that says « Il y a un instant, entre la 15e et la 16e gorgée de champagne, où tout homme est un aristocrate. » So, I bought this book without knowing nothing about the story. And I read it without knowing nothing about the story. Amélie Nothomb is an author I know. Haven't read anything of hers before, but I've always wanted to try her books. So I was like, this is a sign. Just read it. And it took me out of a reading slump. So this is a great book. It's a book you cannot put down, but it's also a weird book. Like, I think that I've read this in 2 days, like in 2 sittings, like the first part and then the second part, and it was finished. And I really liked so many parts in it. The way it was written was really interesting, but it's such a weird book in terms of when the book finishes, it feels like it isn't. It feels like it can go on, and I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. Like, it's a good thing in terms of we were not expecting that, and it's a bad thing in terms of we were not expecting that. I don't know. So the story went into places I was not expecting at all, and at the same time I think that they made all the sense in the world without making any sense. I know I make no sense, because even nearly a month after finishing this book, I cannot really talk about it, because I cannot find the right words to talk about it, because it's such a weird story, and such a good one at the same time, and such a different one, and such an original one. It's definitely one you cannot put down, so you just want to see where it's going, and you realize it's not really going anywhere, and it's just a story. And I recommend this book. Just go read it and tell me what you thought about it. I'm curious to talk about other people who read this. If you read it, tell me what you thought about it. I want to discuss it with someone. I know no one who read it. So yeah, tell me what you thought about this. If you've read it, and if not, go read it and tell me about it. It's called Le Fait du Prince by Amélie Nothomb. I have no idea if this has been translated to English, because it's originally in French. So yes. Our next book is I Want to Die But I Want to Eat Tteokbokki by Baek Se-hee, and this is a non-fiction book. I feel like there isn't a lot of non-fiction in here. Oh yes, there isn't a lot of non-fiction in my autumn. Well, there is a couple ones come in, but yeah. So I Want to Die and I Want to Eat Tteokbokki is, I thought that it was personal thoughts of the author Baek Se-hee. But no, it's actually written on the front page. I just didn't pay attention to that. It's transcription with her psychiatrist. So whenever she went to her psychiatrist, she used to record herself and then she transcribed everything. Not everything. She chose some of the days she was going to publish and to share. And she was commenting on it. Not a lot of commentary, but there was still commentary in the book, personal commentary. And it was such an interesting book to read. I cried a little bit with it. It was heartwarming. It was saddening, and it was relieving at the same time. And I think that it is an important read that everyone should read. It's about mental health. It's about how to deal with mental health. It's about how we all struggle with mental health, and how we all struggle differently, and how we may have some similar mental health struggles and some different ones. and it's about how to deal with them, and how it's a journey, and how you cannot find like a magic solution to it, and how it's the journey takes years and years, and perhaps sometimes a lifetime, and how it's okay, and how it's okay to not be okay, to quote one of the greatest K-dramas ever, and to quote another K-drama called Doctor Slump. Being happy is not about being happy all the time. It's about knowing that there will be days when you will be sad, and knowing that that's okay, and being okay with it. So yeah, that was a very emotional reading, and I highly recommend it. I think that there is a second book. There is a second one. She published a second one. I'm certainly going to be reading it. I'm not sure that there is a second one, so I'm gonna make sure of that and then read it if there is one. So yes, I want to die, but I want to eat tteokbokki is a really great reading. It was really fast also. I think you could read that in a 3 hours span of time. So yeah, I highly recommend it for you. Then I've read Part of Your World by Aimée Jimenez, which is the first book in the Part of Your World series by her. The second one is Yours Truly, and the third one is Just for the Summer. And this book was my reconciliation with the romance genre. I think, I don't know if you know that about me, but romance is my favorite ever genre to watch, but not my favorite genre to read, because I always keep comparing everything I read to the K-dramas I watch, and I think that now no one does romance like K-dramas do, and every single romance I have read till now, not every single one, there were great ones, I'm not gonna lie, but mostly the romances I've read are mostly romances that focus on physical attraction, and while that's important and it needs to be in the book, it needs to be present, I hate when it's just that. Like, where is the romance? Where is the fluff? Where is the actual feelings? Where is the actual romance? Like, I don't find that in the writings of these books. And honestly, the best people who do romance books to me are Asian authors, because they feel like the K-dramas I watch. And Aimée Jimenez here was my reconciliation with romance. I really loved this book. I loved it so much. It's a reversed age gap romance, which is one of the tropes I really like in romances. And it's a romance where they just basically come from very different worlds. She is very successful ER doctor who has her family legacy. Like, everyone in his family or in her family is a doctor of something, and she just went out from a very bad breakup, a very bad relationship, very abusive one. And she meets this boy, Daniel, and he's like 10 years or younger than her, and he lives in a small town, and he's running an inn, and he has a dog, and he's like super fluffy and such a golden retriever energy, and they just meet, and while in the beginning it's just a fling, their feelings just develop for each other, and they just do not belong in the same worlds, and it's just such a beautiful story. And all along I was wondering how they will unfold, how the story will unfold, how they will solve all their problems. And it was such a green flaggy romance. It was so healthy. It was so well written. The writing, Aimée Jimenez writes so good. I'm so happy I discovered this author, and I'm so impatient to read all of her other books and to review them for you. I love the character developments. I love the relationships developments. I love that we focused also on the secondary characters. I loved how Daniel was really a caring main male lead, and how he was such a green flag, and how he was so healthy, and how the story basically teaches you about love and about family and found family and what really matters in life, and how sometimes you need to make some sacrifices, and how you always have a choice. And it also treats so many heavier subjects, like, for example, abuse in relationships, whether it is physical or emotional or psychological abuse, and it is treated in such a great way. And I'm really impatient to read the rest of the the rest of Abe Jimenez books to see all she has to tell us and to meet the main characters from Part of Your World again in Yours Truly. Because in Yours Truly we focus on the story of Alexis's, which is who is our main female lead, best friend, Brie. So we focus on her story, so we get to meet the Daniel and Alexis again and all their friends. We get to meet them. Oh, so spice level, I think that it's a 1 out of 5. There is some spice in it. As a person who doesn't like reading books with so much spice, I can say that it is safely a safe book. So there is not a lot of spice, and the spice there is not something very vulgar and very very graphic. So, and this is also easily skippable. If you may want to skip it, you don't miss much. So yeah, that's it. And then for our final 2 books, I have Résister by Salomé Saké, which is an essay in French that has not been translated. And it's an essay by the French journalist Salomé Saké, who is treating of the rise of l'extrême droite. I don't know what l'extrême droite is in English. In French, in Europe in general, but in French especially, and how that is dangerous and why it is rising and how it is rising and how we can resist that, because résister means resist, or how we can resist that. It was such an interesting reading for me, even though I don't live in France, even though I'm not French, but I study political sciences, so that was interesting for me. On a personal level, like on academic level, but also on, because I think that the things that are said in these books are important to know, even though you're not really French, because even though it's a specific context, but this is a context that you can find differently in different parts of the world. So yeah, it was a really great essay, very short also, so go read it. I highly recommend it. And finally, last but not least, I've read the first book in the Pretty Little Liars series by Sarah Shepard, and as much as I would want to say that I hated this book, I actually kind of liked it. I didn't love it. I rated that a 2 out of 5, so it was a good book, but not a great book. I've watched the Pretty Little Liars series when I was in high school, when I had just finished high school actually. At the moment, I kind of liked it, but now looking back at it, and last time I just saw some clips from it on TikTok, and I was like, oh my god, what were we watching? It's just nuts. The series was just nuts and was kind of ruined starting from season 3, but honestly, not my favorite TV show ever, but I still wanted to someday maybe read the books, because I've heard that the books are very different from the TV show, from the adaptation. And this first book was basically like watching the pilot episode. So it was just the pilot episode with infinite more details, because it's a book and we have the place to put more details. So it was basically that, just the setup before we find out that Alison De Laurentiis is dead, and how we find out that, and how the 4 girls start getting messages from this mysterious A. So yes, I actually picked up now, as I'm filming this video, I'm reading the second book of the series. It's kind of these books that are very well written. I think that the writing is very good, like the tonality of how it's written in this really quirky way, funny way, mysterious way. I think that it matches the story more than the story itself. Yeah, I don't see what I hope you see what I mean. It's like more of the writing that makes it better than the story itself. The story, the characters are not all very pleasant. They are not all very attaching. You don't feel bad for all of them. This is a series that I could finish someday, just to see who the A of the books is, because the A of the TV show, there were A's in the TV show, there were multiple A's, are different from the ones in the books. So yeah, I'm excited to see that and to hear more about that. And now, at the moment where I'm speaking, and the moment perhaps when you will see this video, I think that I will try to post it by the end of November. I'm still reading Exil by Shannon Messenger, which is the second book in the Gardien des Cités Perdues series, the Keeper of Lost Cities. I've read book one, I've reread book one during summer, and I'm rereading Exil now, and I'm really enjoying it. So I will have probably finished that by the end of November. I'm also reading another book. It's an essay, also really interesting theories, really a book that I would recommend, even though I'm just 35% in, according to my Goodreads. It's called Politiser le bien-être by Camille Test. The title speaks for itself. It's basically about how well-being is something that should be or should not be, and that is actually very politic. So, and I'm reading, finally, as I said, I'm reading the second book of the Pretty Little Liars series, and I'm listening as an audiobook to People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I am already 38% in, and I'm loving it. I think that Emily Henry, in addition to Abe Jimenez, will be the other author who is reconciling me with the romance genre. Okay everyone, we have successfully reached the end of this video. I'm really sorry. This was not supposed to be this long. I was supposed to talk for 20 minutes, but that was not knowing me very well. So I really hope that you have sat throughout this video. If you have made it here, thank you so much. I hope you have felt inspired by some of the readings you have discovered in this video, and that you will read some. If you do, please tell me. If you have already read some of the books I have talked about, please talk to me about it in the comments or on Instagram. I'm gonna put my Instagram on the description box. So really, I was not counting because I'm looking at the time on my recorder here, and it's 57 minutes. I'm gonna try to do my best on editing this to make it a little bit shorter, but I cannot do miracles. I just really hope that you enjoyed it. And autumn 2024 has been a really good season for readings for me, and it has been a really good season where I connected with audiobooks. I have never read audiobooks. I've never listened to audiobooks as much as I did this autumn, and it was really helpful in terms of discovering a maximum of books that I've been putting away for such a long time on my TBR, on my really long, enormous, gigantic TBR. And it was really, I think, a season where I've read different genres, where I've dived into different book series that I've been wanting to start or to continue for such a long time, and where I've discovered new authors, and where I've also managed to read some nonfiction, especially the two latest books in November. Yes, we're in November. So yes, tell me, how was your reading this autumn? Have you read anything special? Was there a book that just changed your life and that was just so good? Tell me all, and I really hope you're doing great. I really hope you're doing good. I really hope everything's doing good in your lives. See you soon in a very soon video. Je vous aime. Oh, I've also forgot to talk about how I changed my setup. In May of this year, I changed my whole bedroom. I did a bedroom makeover, and I traded the libraries. So this will be my new setup starting from now. This is my new library, and I may or may not in the future do a library tour. Tell me if you'd be interested in that, like a library tour of how I put it all together, why these books are here and these aren't, why I chose this certain decor. So I may film a library tour. Tell me if that would be something you'd be interested in. So yes, that's it. This will be my new setup. I hope you like it as much as you like the previous one.